Okay, welcome to my talk about multi-skilled, multimodal space-time life. Well, that sounds very cool and very amazing and those kind of stuff. Amazing, cool and difficult words. But in this short presentation we're gonna make it quite quickly about what it actually is about. So, what we kind of know for certain is that there is some space. Let's say that this is space, and this space on its current state, like everything what contains in it, so outer space but also space that you're in right now, is non-linearly distributed. So not everything is on the same place. There's no homogeneous distributed space, and this non-linear distribution is across all scales. So on this earth there is non-linear distribution in like ground and water and ice. There's this person here who also is non-linear. His body is non-linear distributed, like skin and flesh and bones. Then on a smaller scale we have the cells, and then on a smaller scale we have in the atoms. And well, space is in this time very fixed, so nothing is happening at this current moment. First we have just space, but through this space there is something what we might call energy, or people also name it dynamics. Time, I think, those kind of the same things, dynamics and time. And this kind of makes the mass of the matter through the space moving. So it pushes matter through, like energy forces matter towards some other places in space, and it guides matter through like the space bending. Well, there is space bending that guides the matter through gravity. The gravity is kind of spatial, but either way, there's energy that pushes matter, and that makes changes. And also this is also multi-scaled, so we have on different clusters, different sizes, we have different streams of like energy. You can compare it like the climate, for example. You have big streams of hot, high pressure, low pressure waves, and on a smaller scale, like within your village or within your city, there are different subflows of larger flows. So, or vectors you can put together and tear apart, making different sizes of energy flow. So if you take these together, these dynamics and space, you can kind of get the space-time, but you cannot really aptly represent it in one picture because it's space and these dynamics together. So the flowing planets and the stars, how they move through the universe, making space-time. So we are already then at the human, and it's kind of interesting and just very easy comparison as well, because we are also kind of space-time people, because we have a body. So the body is our physical body, which is caught in space. So we are somewhere in space, and we behave. We also use our energy to get through our environment and get through space and change from position, look at different things. So in space-time, so we're bound to a certain position in space. So we are here somewhere on Earth, you're somewhere else than me, at the origin of the XYZ axis, somewhere in space. You're bound to a position in space, but you're also at this current moment, you're bound to a certain moment in time. So today is 11th September, and you see the universe exactly at this time of its evolution. So well, if you lived 10 years before, then you would see it at a different time, and these red lines represent the dynamics that you've moved through space. So where have you been? And this guy has been on quite some place in the past, and over here he was quite for a while, changing the matter and the dynamics through space. And together this brings us to a certain perspective, because this guy has some certain perspective on the universe. So depending on the angle where you are, so depends. Imagine that you are somewhere here. You can see differently from your own angle. So if you look from different perspectives on this person, then well, from one part you can see it from the front, this baby, this one from the side, from the back, from the other side. And this perspective also holds for the evolution. So this might be one person at various ages. So if you lived 20 years ago, this guy was this guy, and 20 years ago this was that guy, and 20 years ago that guy, and all from different positions around him taken. So this is this angle from a certain point in space, and the evolution from a certain point in time together gives us our perspective where we are bound to space and time where we are right now. From that point, from that position in that moment in time, we have senses. So for humans, these are the mainly the eyes, the tongue, the nose, ear, and hands. And with this, we can observe the universe. So through these senses, we can both see spatial patterns and we can see dynamic patterns around us. So imagine I'm somewhere at this certain point and time, and I observe through light, through my eye, I observe the spatial patterns of this girl standing here. So I see her, kind of her geometry, and depending on how I focus, I can see multi-spatial scales. So at several scales I can observe this girl, and depending on how I focus with my eyes. But usually when we see people we can see multiple scales, but we can focus a little bit. But if we look for a while, we can also might see her move. And that can we also see in multi-temporal scales. So for example, for 1 little second, this girl can wink, but for a longer period, you can see her jump, and even on a longer period you can see her studying some degree, and even the longest period you can see her aging from 0 to, I don't know how old she get, like 80 or something. So, but this is then again the binding together of space and dynamics, because a jump is a temporal thing, but it also needs a body to jump. So the energy kind of needs the body to move, so it's a space-time activity. Behavior is a space-time activity. Change with dynamics and time. And it's also connected to the environment if we are looking at activities, because you cannot jump if you have no ground, and you cannot study if there's no university, and you cannot age if you have no energy around you. So, but again, we have these multiple senses, we don't just have the eye. So we are combining these signals that we get through our senses, and then we make a pattern from it. So we see a banana, we can also taste a banana, we can smell a banana, if we may touch it we can hear even a banana. So if we touch it, you can taste, if you can touch it, you can feel if it's actually a banana, and then you can taste it if it tastes like banana. And together you can combine these signals, these patterns, and then you can, and the temporal and the spatial patterns, and then you can see where it's actually banana. And if you're not certain, you might grab it or you might taste it. So from uncertainty, from perception, from seeing the banana through your senses, if you're uncertain about whether it's really a banana, you can go to actions, and then you can taste it and then take it apart. And if you think it's a plastic banana, you're going to grab it. So from that you get kind of this spatial temporal pattern. Well, I put it out here in your brain from above, so you get, you know how it looks, and you know how it tastes and how it smells, and together you get some kind of pattern, which is a combination of the multi-scaled temporal patterns and the multi-scaled spatial patterns, making together the perception of a banana. This brings together the structure in your brain, which is kind of your reference, your reference part, like how does it look like, and through the dynamics, through the patterns that you perceive through perceiving outside, you can compare these dynamics with your structure, and then you can see if there's coherence between them. And this coherence is quite fun and interesting to look at, because we can see this coherency between multiple aspects of something. So let's take a few coherent ones. So if someone is wearing a sweater with a NASA shirt on, and he says, well, I work at NASA, that's quite coherent. Someone could also have wear a sweater and then he's not working NASA. Would be weird, but some people do it. Well, this rose, if it smelled like a banana, that will be weird, but this one smells like rose, so that's coherent. Bunnies are soft, and now we get to the weird part from the incoherent ones. So if someone looking angry at you and says, I love you, that is really just a bit weird. That's incoherent, because then these signals, which are usually aligned, like you have a happy face with I love you smell, with I love you text, incoherent is a bit weird, so you might be a bit confused. And someone's looking very thin and he says I bodybuild often, a bit weird. Or this big company Shell says we care about the environment, is also a bit weird. It's incoherent between the behavior and the actual appearance of the company. So, but it depends on the person on how you perceive these patterns. So imagine you have this I love you pattern from the last one, and if we take these patterns in some kind of geometrical space-time pattern, different people will see it. Imagine this guy who knows this guy, and he has the same pattern. So this guy knows that guy, and he knows that he always looks angry when he says I love you. So he kind of understands for the most part that he says I love you, and whether he's used to it from him. But this person doesn't recognize that. He thinks, well, that is weird, he looks angry, he doesn't know him that well, and he looks angry while he says that I love you. So this is kind of an incoherent pattern with him. And this baby hardly has any associations. He doesn't even know what loving is, the word loving is, and he doesn't know yet how facial expressions are used. So he needs to make new configurations. He needs to build this network through this temporal dynamics. He will make a structure, and there we can also see the intricate interaction between the space and time, because every organ, that's not very pretty, but every organ in the brain is a spatio-temporal interaction between the structure and the dynamics that flow through him. So the brain both knows spatial and temporal dynamics. Well, the heart and all the system, also there is a spatial structure, and the dynamics through it interact. And if there's a chaotic interaction where there's not really a fit, then this leads to entropy, and it's not very good for the system. Just as well as the muscles in the body. So this incoherence might lead to confusion. So if someone says this and he's like, well, that doesn't fit, there might be some confusion because these patterns don't really fit, and for this baby it's still like very confusing. But to that you get this perception action again, like there's confusion, so you compensate and you ask like, why are you looking angry, why you say I love you? And then he might explain as, oh, I always look like this. And with this coherence, if this pattern is synchronized, then you just get acceptance, because, well, I love you is I love you, so thank you, I love you too, maybe. Well, that's already brings the end, and then, well, then something sparks in the brain when there is coherence between two people, and that is already also the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.